afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. This is Miss Brianne, and welcome to the Westhampton Free Virtual Library, the place on YouTube where you can view all of our programs virtually on YouTube. Hopefully we'll be able to have our programs live someday or in the near future, but until then, please feel free to enjoy watching our videos on YouTube. Now, I know we have for the last few months we've had a lot of fun activities for you. We've had art programs, maybe a couple of music programs, we had food programs, and it's all very fun and exciting, right, boys and girls? Well, as of right now, we are on winter break, so to help relieve some of that boredom, I have a fun little watercolor art project for you to do today. Now, as you know, we are currently in the season of winter, or at the tail end of winter anyway, and when winter is like snow, for the most part, I mean, we've gotten some snow, right, boys and girls? But we do have snow, and do you know how, isn't it so pretty when it falls on the ground, the snow? And it's a nice scene, right? Having it fall on the trees and on the ground. Of course, then you have to shovel it, and it's not so pretty, but when it first falls, it's very pretty, right? Well, we're going to recreate that scene without the mess of shoveling the sidewalk or the driveway, or having your dog run around in it. But this is what we're going to call them winter watercolor scenes. Now I'm going to go over step by step on how to do this, and when you're done, we'll have something that looks kind of like this. And I did this one in with purple. And I also did another one with a pink background. But aren't they amazing? And you can do this yourself. It's very easy. Now, you should have gotten the craft kit. And I gave you 2 of these little sheets of watercolor paper that if you wanted, you could do 2 of them. Plus you also got a watercolor palette with watercolor paints. And you should have the colors, and I checked, blue, purple, black, and green. So you should have all those colors. Now if you have watercolors of your own that you want to use, it's completely fine. As long as you have those 4 colors, or if you have as long as you have blue, purple, green, and black. And if you have pink instead of purple, you can certainly use that as well. And the watercolor palette should come with its own paintbrush. But if you have your own you like to use, that's fine too. And you also, if you picked up our craft kit, you should have gotten a small thing of white tempera paint. But if you didn't get a chance to pick up our craft kit, please have some tempera paint on hand. And what you should also have on hand is a pencil and an old toothbrush. Do not buy a new toothbrush for this. Get one that's already been used and you don't need it anymore. Don't waste a new toothbrush on it. And if you have it, painter's tape. And I'll explain why in a minute. So, give me 1 second, I just forgot something really quick. boys and girls. Sorry about that. I forgot one of my watercolors. That's the beauty of recording this. You're not always perfect. But you should have your 4 colors. You should have green, blue, black, and these are the 3 colors you need. And either purple or pink. For these purposes, I'm using purple. And you also need a paintbrush. And like I said, if you have picked up the kit, you should have all of this, the paintbrush and the paints already. But you can use your own paintbrushes and your own watercolors if you want. You should also have a cup of water on hand. You should have your tempera paint on hand. This should have been included in your craft kit, but please have some on hand if you didn't pick it up. And you should have 2 of these pieces of paper. Again, if you didn't pick up the craft kit, please have this paper on hand. And you also need an old toothbrush on hand. Old toothbrush, not a new one. And a pencil on hand. And if you want, painter's tape. So, are we ready to begin? Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to put some tape around the borders of the paper. And this serves 2 purposes. One, it keeps your paper in place. And 2, it's a great way to create a border, a white border around your artwork. So we're just going to hold this in put the tape around the paper. And there you go. So that's holding it. Like I said, this is completely optional. You don't need to do this. If you have it, that is perfectly okay. Now, the next thing you're going to do, are we ready? Next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our pencil and we're going to draw kind of a hill towards the bottom of the paper. So we're going to start at the top, and do this very lightly, slowly curve downwards, and then make another curve when you're almost at the bottom. And this part here represents the snow falling on the ground. Now, I'm going to take my blue, put it in the holding area. And now I'm going to take my water right here. I'm going to wet my brush, dip it in the paint, So wet my brush, take a little bit of the paint and put it to the side. Now, we're just going to paint a little bit of this top part here, and we're going to do it in a very light blue. Now, you don't need to mix blue and white to get light blue. Here's how you're going to do it. You're going to put some blue on the paper, and we're going to do like a little slant. Then you're going to dip your brush in the water and carefully spread it out. And the more water you put on it, the lighter your colors will be. So, do a little bit more. There we go. So there's our light blue layer. Now our next layer, we're going to put our dark blue layer. And you don't have to wait for the other layer to dry before you do it, because it's going to give a cool effect. So then you put your dark blue layer in the middle. And see how it blends together? Isn't that a cool effect? Put a little bit more. So there's our second layer. And then finally, we're going to get our purple or pink paint out. Make sure you rinse off your brush. And then we're going to put our violet. And like I said, it's got a cool little blend effect when it's still wet. Which is why I recommend your layers still be wet when you apply the background sky. There we go. Spread that out a bit. Alright, so I'm going to give you a few minutes to finish that while I go change my water. Going to give it a few minutes to complete that and wait for the paint to dry. And if you do it lightly, it doesn't take very long for the paint to dry at all. And I'm just going to grab a towel to dab some of that excess color off the tape. So how you doing, boys and girls? Are you doing good so far? I hope you're enjoying this. It's still a little damp, so I'm just going to give it another minute or two. And if you have a blow dryer, that also helps. Okay, it's about dry now. So, we ready for the next step? Oh, and you can always pause this if you need more time. So, here's the next step. Take a minute and think about where you want to put your first trees. Because we're going to paint about 2 or 3 trees in green. So take a minute to think about it. Alright, so I think I know where I'm going to put one tree. I'm going to put one tree over here and draw this very lightly, as tall, make it as tall as you want. Another tree over here. and maybe a tree over here. So I figured out where I want to put my trees. Now we're going to take our green and pour a little bit in. Got our water. And we're going to take our brush, wet it, dip it in the green, and we're going to do one little swoop here and one little swoop here. And you're just going to keep going underneath. Swoop, 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 and swoop. Just keep going. Swoop and swoop, swoop and swoop, swoop, swoop right here. Oh, here's a tip, boys and girls. If you want to paint your trees, start from this side. That way you don't have to worry about possibly smudging it when you go and paint your others. Swoop and swoop, swoop and swoop, then swoop until you get to the bottom. So there's one tree done. Now I'm going to do my other one. And just swoop and swoop to the left and do a swirl to the right. Just keep going. Fill in some space if you need to. Make it a little bit fuller if you need to. And there's our second tree painted. Now we're just going to paint our last tree. Make that a little bit darker. Just make swooping movements, like go down curve and down and curve. There we go, and there's the third tree done. So we're going to give that a few minutes for it to dry. And I'll give you some time to catch up. Like I said, if you need more time, you can always pause. I hope you're having fun, boys and girls. Keep going if you need to. Just waiting a couple more minutes for the last tree to dry. The other two are pretty much dry by now, but we're just waiting for the last one. So just keep working, boys and girls. Getting there. Just give it a little bit more time. Because you don't want to smudge the trees you already painted. That wouldn't be a good thing, right? Alright, looks about dry by now, so let's move on to the next step. And the next step is, again, you're going to take your pencil and you're going to draw as much as you can fit. You're going to draw about 2 or 3 more trees. I'm going to put one right over here and one right over here. Now, we're going to take our black watercolor paint, put some in, and with the same type of movements you did with the green cheese, we're going to do it with the black. So, here we go. Do a little swooping motion up top, down, and curve. Like so. Just keep going. If it overlaps with your green trees, that is perfectly okay. It gives the feeling of it being closer to the front, or the illusion. And just keep doing those curly swooping, oops. And be careful where you place your hand until you get to the bottom. All right, there's one tree done. Now we start the other one. And there's the second tree done. All right, so I'm going to give it we're going to wait a few minutes for that to dry. I'm going to go change my water. So give that a minute or two, and then we'll move on to the next step. Okay, another couple minutes. We're almost there. Alright, I think we're good. So, the last step with the watercolor paint is you're going to do you put a teeny tiny bit of blue at the bottom. And you only, just to make a little bit of shadow, and then you just, to soften it, just put a little bit of water. Creates a very nice shadow. Like so. Here we go. Give that a minute to dry. Then we'll do the final step. All right, you ready? So we got our white tempera paint here. You're going to take your toothbrush. You're going to dip it in the paint Make sure you wipe a little bit of the excess off. And then, with your finger, you're going to rub your finger around the bristles over the paper like this. And make sure your work area is covered before you do this because the paint goes all over the place. And you just keep doing that. Now when it dries, you're not going to be able to see it that well. It works better with acrylic paint. The problem with acrylic paint is, it is very messy and it's hard to clean once you spill it. So that's why we're using tempera paint. That's easy to wash. But like I said, always make sure your work area is covered before you do this step. And that should be enough. So I'll just rinse off my brush real quick and let that dry for a minute. And then when it's dry, you just slowly and very carefully peel the tape off of your painting. And there you go. Your winter scene watercolor painting. I hope you enjoyed that a lot. I certainly had fun painting this with you. And if you're interested in this type of program or any other of our other programs, please feel free to check out our YouTube website and register for the programs that myself and the other children's librarians here have to offer at the Westhampton Free Library. But in any event, I certainly enjoyed this program. I hope you did too. I hope to see you in the next one. But until then, take good care of yourselves. Have a great day, and I will see you soon.